52 different polling places, 53 polling locations, and about 409 people that serve the community on election day. The voters that voted was 54,969. So I'm presenting the results to you and the declaration for you guys to declare. Do you have any questions or concerns?
We have quite a few public comment cards, so I think any supervisors right now have any questions? Okay, so we'll move to public comment if that's okay, Joanna.
Sure.
And so up first, Steve Woodrum, followed by Christian, followed by Dolores Lucero. Start there. Welcome.
Good morning. I attended the hand counting on March 18th. The doors opened at 8:45, and I walked right in after Supervisor Jones and his friends. The counting itself started around 9 o'clock. I stayed for 1.5 hours. I had never watched hand counting before, so it took me a while to figure out the process. Once I understood the system, I didn't see anything suspicious. Supervisor Jones said that he stayed for 38 minutes, and he claimed to have seen 5 individual acts of election fraud, ballots being switched around. This claim is itself very suspicious. If the clerk really wanted to break the law, do you really think she would have done it 5 times in a row, right in front of Jones? Now, maybe the staff made a mistake, the same mistake over and over. But come on, these people knew their jobs. They knew they were under intense negative scrutiny. It's unlikely a mistake would have been repeated like that in just 38 minutes. Now, maybe Jones didn't understand the system, and he innocently jumped to a bad conclusion. That's possible. But wait a minute now. He has attacked our clerk and elections office over and over and over. He has a grudge and a bias. I suspect he was looking for something, anything, to complain about. His complaint about voter fraud during the hand counting is not believable. By attacking our elections, he has damaged our ability to govern ourselves. Further, he has hounded our clerk to an early end of her very distinguished career of public service, and this is a shame.
Christian Gardner, followed by Dolores Lucero, then Jenny.
As a citizen and taxpayer, I am so thrilled with our Department of Elections. They are incredible people doing incredible work under intense adversity brought upon them. I'm trying to stay civil here. Brought upon them by election deniers like Mr. Jones and threats to their lives from people like, no, I'm just going to retract that. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Jones, you were quoted in the news, I think yesterday, saying you have full confidence that this board will not certify the elections. That's amazing. And in fact, it's not surprising the JCK cartel have been denying free and fair elections or even trying to interfere or obstruct the right of people to vote for the last couple of years. Not that this is not surprising. What is reassuring is it really doesn't matter. You guys can certify or not. It really doesn't matter. By law, the authority to do so has done so, and on the 12th, I believe, the state of California will acknowledge that. This scam has gone on long enough, Mr. Jones. No matter how hard you want to snivel, lie, or complain, or cry, call it good. Let's move on. I know you wish in your remaining days to try to figure out how to, I don't know, change Shasta County into the greater state of Idaho or whatever the heck you've got planned. And you're going to double down, triple down on your election denying. And the citizens are going to come up before you and say, enough is enough. It's time to move on. I hope this board understands that and basically simply does that. Or not. If you don't, we understand why. It's to appease the militia and the JCK cartel members who will go on with their lies and disinformation and their propaganda, costing Shasta County,
Trillions.
if not millions, maybe even more in reputation and our good name within the state of California. Certify this election. Let's move on.
Dolores Lucero, followed by Jenny, followed by Dr. Laura Hobbs.
Dolores Lucero, Shasta County Watchdog. Yes, I do investigate people like these corrupt officials. Regarding the election here, I know, Patrick Jones, you are I know your plans, and you can deal that you lost the race, and you guys have been planning this for a long time. So if I was you, I recommend to do what's right, because I do have texts to prove it. So if you don't do what you're supposed to do, I will release those texts. And by couple things in regarding the election. The charter, it was not done correctly. It was done illegal. You had no right to try to pass this charter. It was not done correctly. Just so you guys know that. There's a couple of attorneys working on that right now. And so if you claim fraud or any that there was something going on with the election, you can't just pick the election regarding who ran on the ballot, who their names was on the ballot. I'm telling you right now, you can't pick and choose. You did it wrong. You should have done it individual. You should have done a special election. You should have just done the election itself. But now if you try to hijack it or whatever you're trying to do here, you actually will have to say there was election fraud in everything, not just because you lost the race. So just so you be aware, there's attorneys working on what you pass when you put that charter was not done correctly. And then also you misled the voters and the people who helped you to put this together. They have no knowledge, no education on the elections or the laws, and they claim to be, they know what they're doing, but they don't. And I'm telling you right now, you got a surprise coming, and it won't be long. So just be aware, Patrick. You keep on crying wolf. You need to understand, Patrick, you've been planning this for a long time. Let's face it. You could sit there and laugh. I don't care. I won't even look at you because I can't stand looking at you. But it's unbelievable. But Kevin Cry, I also have a text on you in regarding what you were asking in regarding how to get signatures and to be able to see the election signatures. Yes, oh yeah, I do have it. So don't say no, because I could bring it out and show everybody.
I'll make photocopies.
Oh no, you know what? Don't be such a smart ass. Just because you're the chair, you think you could get away with it? No. But it's okay. You could go ahead and be a smart ass, but you know what? You're wrong. You're a liar and you're a cheater.
Show everybody the text. Pass it around.
I don't have.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Show. Give it to the media. Photocopy it. Here we go. Jenny, followed by Laura, followed by Teresa Roberts. Welcome.
So I just wanted to thank Joanna for her hard work, and she's incredibly hardworking, and her staff worked incredibly to do this. I mean, her staff had to work with new equipment, and Kathy Darling Allen's been out sick, so it was like Joanne stepped up, so thank you. Thank you, Board, for recognizing the need for a peaceful transfer of power. It's necessary to calm the people who feel they lost and to excite the people who feel they won. It's necessary to pass the torch in a way that shows the people that our government works. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Laura Hobbs, followed by Teresa Roberts, followed by Nick Gardner.
Okay, good morning, Board. I have quite a few observations that I'd like to summarize for you as to why you should not declare this election. There were plenty of audit log problems. To summarize, the audit log record tells you who did what when. It explains what's going on inside the Hart intercivic machine. We found that dates and times, which are an important component of the audit log, were actually incorrect. They didn't match the dates and the times that the batches were actually scanned. That's a huge issue in and of itself. But furthermore, we found that most of the vote by mail batches, I would say about half, that I looked at so far, have the wrong ballot numbers assigned to each batch. That's a huge problem. When I looked at the election day batches, the number of ballots per batch for the election day, it matched almost perfectly. Now, each batch size is different. Typically, they're 100, but on election day, many of the batch sizes were 18, 55, 75, 88 ballots each. And I go to the audit log, and sure enough, those same numbers repeated almost to a T. Not so with the vote by mail ballots, which indicates a problem there, possible computer manipulation. We also had a problem with the batch created data. So many batches were created in duplicate. The problem with this is that in the end, the duplicates have to be resolved. If it was a legitimate rerun, then it should be deleted, right? But if it was not an actual duplicate, whereas you have a different precinct number, a different number of batches scanned, then it should not be deleted. I saw 40 instances of duplicates. And of those, that composed about 4,000 votes that were discarded wrongfully, in my opinion. So further, I would like to discuss the problem with the cast vote record data. So I've gotten the cast vote record data. Now, the dates of the cast vote record data do not match the observed dates of people actually sitting in the office watching the computer as it scanned ballots. The dates, they also do not match the audit log dates. So now we have 3 sets of dates, possibly 3 different sets of books. So even more concerningly, the cast vote record precinct information does not match the precinct information of either the audit log or the direct observation. So that's a huge problem. The cast vote record analysis done by a cyber guy and shows actual manipulation there as well. So please do not certify, do not declare. Thank you.
Teresa Roberts, Nick Gardner, Kim Moore.
I don't know as much as she does on all this stuff. She's the brains behind it all. But I do know that when I was in there observing, one of the ladies that I was observing with, she had her own table, which is table 1. I had table 2. She had a batch number and a precinct number that she had done. And then 15, 20 minutes later, all of a sudden that batch and precinct number were at my table. And there were 3 different counts on it. But they went ahead and took it anyways. Now, when we had brought it up to, I don't know what her name was in there. She was just under Joanna. She said, oh, well, they took it upstairs and they realized that it was counted wrong, so they brought it back down. They just counted it down there, and it was signed by all 4 people who'd done it. So I don't understand where all that is, but I think in order to make this, yes, the law says you have to have it go through a machine, But if you were to count all those at the precinct right from the get-go, one day there, period, hand count them, and then run them through the machine, I'm sure everybody would be happy. And whatever happens, happens. And Patrick, damn good job. That's all I can say. You've done what you needed to do, and I can't wait for your gun range to be open.
Nick Gardner, followed by Kim Moore, followed by Mike James.
I'd like to know what the count was on the recount with the machine as opposed to the hand count, if they came out the same or if there was a discrepancy there. And also, I'd like the board to insist on a recount with the District 2, I believe it is, with Laura Jones and Alan Long. I think the 13 votes that got him over the 50% threshold is close enough to where the county should demand a recount, and it should be taken out of the general fund. Whoever asked for a recount shouldn't have to pay for it. And what's so funny about that? Well, what's so funny about it?
Please direct your comments here, if you can.
Thank you. That's all I've got.
Appreciate it. Kim Moore, followed by Mike James, and I do not have any other cards at this time for R3, so if you'd like, please turn one in or come up to the railing.
Kim Moore, District 1, I too observed ballots being counted at the Register of Voters office, but I wasn't just there for an hour and a half that day. I was there from beginning to the end of counting that day. And I saw a lot of irregularities. I documented them on the back of the sheets that we were using to track the batches and precinct numbers and what we were observing. And the hardest part of it all was that when we saw something go wrong and we weren't allowed to speak, we would raise our hand where her name is Janelle or Janine or something. She was the floor supervisor at the ROB's office. So we would have to raise our hand, wait for her to be willing to come over, and then she wouldn't talk to us anywhere near that area. She would pull us over as far as she could to the edge of the building, which would take us away from being able to observe. And then we would have to, so we would have to plan the raising of our hands and asking questions instead of right then when it was happening to alert them that, hey, we saw this irregularity occur in the counting of these ballots. We'd have to time it in order to continue watching the ballots. I want to state for the record that we were treated worse than inmates by the ROV's office and the employees just for simply wanting to observe the election. And then the other thing I want on the record is that the type of hand counting that the ROV's office is not what we did at the Clint Curtis event. And the way that they did that hand count was intentionally to make it ineffective, take longer, cause mass confusion. I agree with what Ms. Roberts said about ballots being hand counted at the precinct as they're being submitted and run the ballots through the machine after they've all been hand counted. I would agree to that and be satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. I did receive some more cards. So Mike James, followed by Brenda Woods, followed by Casey.
So it's amazing that how often lately in the past 6 years that there's so many irregularities where 8-10 years ago we were using Dominion and nobody complained hardly at all. Everything was perfect. The previous board certified all 5 of these up here. The previous board before them certified all the next incumbents, and so on and so forth. It's amazing how when it goes to hand counting and people have a chance to really look at the discrepancies, how they assume things are done wrong or they wish they were done differently. Why is it that everything ran fairly decent 10 years ago, but ever since somebody instilled in a lot of people that there's irregularities, there's fraud, now there's fraud in everything we do. How is that happening in just a short span of 6, 7 years? Now, everything we do, now we have to go to the state. I understand that the board is now asking for money from the state of $1.5 million to look at election counts and to help with the election counts and to get money from the state. Because now the $250,000 we were spending on Dominion has now ballooned to over 1.25 million. How does this happen? And if there needs to be a recount, let's say Jones doesn't like the outcome of losing by more than 4,000 votes. If he wants a recount, have him pay for the recount. If Cry doesn't like winning by 38 votes, and that's all he won by 38 or 50 votes, so literally half of his community wants him and half doesn't. If he wants a recount, let him pay for the recount. That's not on us voters. That's on him. Why does that have to be on us when this community is already suffering and doesn't have money for police officers, for medical staff, for anything else, but yet we can recount an election? Why?
Brenda Woods, followed by Casey, followed by Lori Bridgeford.
Morning, Board. It was my intention to even speak on this today because I'm here for other reasons. So, Kevin, it's nice to see you here. Patrick, thank you for serving all this time, and you still have more work to do because it's not over yet. You do not need that seat to accomplish good things in your life or for this community. I don't like technology. I think it's dumbed down humanity. It's ruined our children, and I'm all for going back to old school stuff. I agree with the first two ladies, hand count, put it through a machine, but I'm not a proponent of technology and machines, so they make mistakes too. I'm not going to fight whether there's fraud or not, because there's fraud in everything. My daughter's been dead for over a year. I have received countless letters from HSSA asking me if she wanted to re-register, asking for her to reapply for benefits, and had it not been for my honesty, because I could have very well collected her SSI check, I could have collected her medical benefits, I could have voted for her this year, absolutely could have voted for her this year, and nobody would have checked it. I'm all for IDs. You should be a citizen, and we should go back to some old school stuff. There's no reason why we can't have a conversation and try new things, but we are so reliant on computers, nothing's ever going to get solved at this rate. But yeah, I could have voted for my daughter, so I didn't. So thank you.
Thank you. Casey, followed by Lori Bridgeford.
Good morning, everyone. Like the movie Groundhog's Day, where the main character wakes up to the same scenario every morning, we are living in the same world as far as elections go. Every election, citizens of the public, election observers, and election experts come and give testimony after testimony of how insecure and non-transparent our elections are, with the expectation that something will change. And sadly and infuriatingly, it does not. Kathy Allen created the process not in the interest of valid voters. She says she's following the law, yet the process she breaks, with this process, she's breaking many laws and follows only in her interpretation of the law. She cares nothing about transparency or security, but only the outside appearance of it for PR. This is my election office as much as hers. If anything, the transparency and security is getting worse with every election. There's no accountability for not following chain of custody. We, the people, are not given account for the chain of custody of active ballots from the mailboxes and drop boxes to the certification at the election. There are a plethora of black holes throughout the whole process. Unlocked warehouses with ballots, where there are no security cameras. The election room has no cameras, and the large one that does makes it impossible to actually observe. And the camera and the observation's not 24/7. What happens in the 18 so hours where there are no observers during active elections? It's unacceptable. Kathy's idea of transparency is putting up signs that say Shasta County's elections are transparent, while demonizing and calling the FBI and those whose duty it is to bring oversight. She lies and spends millions of our taxpayer money on a drawn-out, highly insecure election process and doesn't seem to have to be accountable to anybody here in Shasta County. Kathy Allen says she's all about following the state law, the same state government that makes tyrannical laws like AB 969 and increases mail-in ballots to suppress us and take away our freedoms, and they're the same government who constantly break their own laws with things like illegal immigration. They are guilty of partnering with drug and child traffickers who have a heyday with their own government's refusal to follow its own laws. Our government overtly works to destroy us by taking away our resources and tax dollars, giving it to illegal foreigners. These same foreigners don't have to show ID to vote. These are the same people who Kathy and our board says we need to obey for the continued degradation of our sacred elections, which our confidence in is at an all-time low. These are such grievously sad times in the history of our county and country. Thank you.
Lori Bridgeford, followed by Thomas.
Good morning, Chair and Board. I am absolutely with the persuasion to do not certify this. This has been weeks and weeks of problematic issues, lack of trust, wrong ballots, no ID, duplicity, poor atmosphere. You could live with that, I suppose, even though they're apparently being quite rude to the observers and watchers. We need a full audit. It makes really not a lot of sense to recount if something's a bunch of monopoly fake money. It's dumb. If it's dirty, soiled, bad, ruined, why recount? Makes zero sense. Now, if there's another way around it with, not sure what the correct term is, it's not a recount, but it's something else, and if it costs money, easily we will pass around a tip jar and it will be paid for, but it has to be the right thing, not wasteful. So look how tight the races were. Mary, your race with Wynn Carpenter and Corky Harmon, what if the numbers are a little bit different? Completely changes the whole narrative. Same with Alan Long, and Dr. Laura Hobbs would be right up there. All you have to do is find very few fraudulent, illegal, incorrect ballots. I mean, I just cannot keep hearing about the multitude of problems that people have been observing and stating. So full forensic audit. I know, most of you would want the transparency and the honesty. I don't know what they're hiding from. I don't understand why some of this was rushed and how they were starting to do some kind of hand counting when they weren't done with something else. I mean, the process is just an absolute nightmare. Please do not certify this. Thank you.
Thomas.
Yeah, I'm in Patrick's district. I don't enjoy being up here, but I enjoy living in a country where your vote should count. And I'm willing to do my thumbprint, driver's license, everything else. Starting from the beginning, I went to my precinct and took my mail vote in, and I said I want a precinct vote, and the guy said no, you can't have one. So I was refused the way I wanted to vote from the beginning, and he was trained also. Whoever trains him, but anyway, I didn't get to vote the way I wanted to vote. I had to use a mail-in ballot. I think that's wrong. I went down 4 days to watch the process of voting. The first one I went to was, I guess they were doing a hand count on something, but I didn't call it a hand count. Some guy was, two people were over there and they split 100 votes and you put them in a box and no one else got to see the name, just some person put it in the box. Then they count the box. To me, that's not a hand count. No verification myself. I don't agree with that process. I went back the last 3 days and I guess they were doing opening ballots and and hand counting and stuff like that, or not hand counting, but machine counting, it could be a better environment down there also. I mean, we're all Americans. But anyway, I don't know anything about the computers and stuff, so I stood where I could virtually see and touch building, chicken wire, whatever, so I could actually see. And there were 4 or 5 people in there, and I got the hang of it. They were coming out and giving a person 100 ballots. Then they'd put them in the machine, and they'd count them, I guess. Then some guy'd get it, and they'd put them over here in 3 boxes. And then while they're doing that, there's a lot of things going on, so I just noticed they're going in boxes. And but anyway, pretty soon I'm seeing them taken out of the boxes, recount them again. So I would let the people know that they're taking them out of boxes and recounting them. And you can't knock on the window, you can't say what's going on. You have to wait till the process is over. So after the process is over, again, I asked the little girl, I go, why did you take them out of the boxes that I thought were already counted? And she said, oh, that one lady made a mistake. So I don't see how when you got 4 or 5 people and this and that a mistake can be made. It should be set up where no mistakes can be made. So I don't know if they're recounted or what, or ran through, or if those ran through were counted, and then you run them through again and not count them or subtract them. But I see an error, and it's not right. And I went to the
Val?
Good morning. I really like quotes. Dear Abby said, a man rarely looks under the bed unless he's been there himself. And Edward Howe said, a thief believes everybody steals. Thank you.
Come on up.
Good morning, Board. Patriots, Mr. Jones, Mr. Cry, Mr. Kellstrom. Like many other people here, I'm asking you to not certify the most recent election. On contest where there's less than 100 votes deciding it, have a full hand-counted recount, an honest tally of what the will of the people actually is. And as others have mentioned, there have been several issues with this election. A young man got up and spoke about, hey, we used to always just go along with Dominion, and now we know that there's a lot of problems with that. And so that's why we're speaking up more. As many people have mentioned, we need hand-counted dual custody paper ballots tallied at the precinct, and the numbers must match what the tally at the county level and at the state level, the official numbers being from the precinct. And then voter ID, one day. Industrialized nations other than the United States have no problem doing a one-day election, and the results come out in the evening just like when we were all kids. That's what we need. And so the second thing, gentlemen, I am asking you again to empower a second grand jury to look at the criminal actions and corruption within Shasta County. And you guys all know more about that than me. Please do it. Thank you very much.
Are you coming up for this item? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If there's anybody else that would like to come to the railing and speak to R3, after that, we'll bring it back for board discussion. Yes, sir.
Well, it's amazing how simple stuff can get so complicated with people that claim to be intelligent, halfway intelligent. This board is aware, I repeat, aware of my claims on voter fraud sent to each one of you when it comes to how I had personal evidence of Secretary of State denying me to vote, charged me with perjury. They said my email was not valid. These are crimes. Goes into the treason, the invasion. And as far as that issue goes, that comes up with favoritism. Stick up for Christina Coates and no boundaries, you also got information on them.
Is there anybody else to R3? Okay, we will bring it back for board discussion. Again, just to reiterate, if you've come in late, declare nominations, measures, and persons elected based on the certified results of the March 5th, 2024 presidential primary election. Supervisor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman Cry. So, Mr. James, you said that there's never been any problems up until recently, and it's only because only up until recently we've been aware of certain things. However, the California Secretary of States have been fully aware. August 6, 2007, California Secretary of State Deborah Bowen has imposed broad restrictions on electronic voting machines and decertified machines used in 39 counties. Bowen said the measures are needed because the machines have been hacked. This is not a question for you, Mr. James.
Go ahead and take a seat. We're back to board discussion at this time. So go ahead and take a seat.
He brought my name up.
Yeah, I'm not addressing you.
Yeah, this is board discussion. Public comments over. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to. Have a seat, please. Thank you.
Hold on. Hey, Pat, hold on. Please take a seat. If you want to sit in the front row, you can sit in the front row. Yeah. All very impressed.
There we go.
All right. Supervisor Jones.
So that was 2007. And, you know, for me personally, I ran in 2002. I lost. I came in dead last on a city council race. I ran again in 2004, came in dead last. I ran in 2006 and won. I ran in 2010 and won. I ran for Board of Supervisors in 2012 and lost. I ran for city council again in 2014 and lost. I ran for assembly in 2019 and lost. And I ran for Shasta County Board of Supervisors in 2020 and won. So I'm very familiar with the process. Over many years, I have ran and lost. I've lost more than I've won. It's part of the process, winning and losing. Somebody is always going to lose. And I've always assumed that whoever works the hardest deserves to win. I believe that, and I still believe that today. The problem with proprietary software, with what we're seeing in California, being forced to use either ES&S, Dominion, or HART, is an insanity. We're purchasing machinery that we cannot verify, and even the Secretary of States have noted that they have been hacked, and they've decertified and decertified and decertified. Voting machines, 2011, used by as many as a quarter of Americans in the United States, can be hacked with $10.50 of parts. The experts say and this is from the security experts, that happened in 2011.
If you can, yeah, hold on. If you can, please just keep the comments just don't. This is the process. We've gone through an election. He has a right to speak. We're going to do that. Hey, this isn't a discussion. This isn't a discussion. So, Supervisor Jones, continue, please.
Moving forward to a press release, June 15th, 2018, by our current Secretary of State, Shirley Weber. She asked in the budget to be placed $134 million for new voting upgrades, while the White House remains in denial. This is our current California Secretary of State in 2018. While the White House remains in denial, our national security apparatus has verified that the Russian attacks on our democracy did not end with the 2016 election. Cyber attacks and misinformation-based warfare continue today. The only difference is what happened after 2020. Now we have free and fair elections. But if you go back with the California Secretary of States, all three of them, they have plenty of records internally and also press releases that show the machines have been hackable. And the Cybersecurities and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, this is an agency with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. They're making note that most importantly, California voters now have a legally verified record of Dominion voting systems failure, which resulted in a falsely certified election in account order decertification of election results in the Oakland Unified School District. This was Hutchinson's versus Redneck, Superior Court of the State of California, County of Alameda. That is a record where Dominion flipped votes. here in California. And if you look over the United States, there are 1,500 court cases settled and another 1,500 still in progress. So to simply say there's no issues would be erroneous. Now, what I witnessed on the recount for Kevin Cry, and again, I took part of the recount of Gary Catt in 2012. There, we had to count 30,000 ballots, and they did that in 2 days. And there were 3 sets of eyes on every ballot. And 30,000 times, there was not one disagreement on the mark that the voter made, because we had 3 sets of eyes on every single ballot. We agreed 30,000 times, not one single disagreement. We found over 200 errors that the computer could not distinguish what the mark of the voter was. It was not kicked out for adjudication. It was just simply picked in error. Computers are not more accurate than people, what we found here in Shasta County. What I observed with the recount for Kevin Cry was ballots coming out, tables labeled 1 and 2, ballots coming out in batches of 100, split in half, roughly, not exact, and then a single person then put a yes and a no ballot in a particular box. Most of the boxes were not labeled, so I couldn't say which ones were yes and which ones weren't. But on one half of table 1, I could see a yes and a no. That is not the rule of 2. One person doing one task, and that's ripe for failure. And it's no fault of theirs, but that's why we have always used 2 and 3 people on every single ballot, so you get it right. They didn't get it right. And when I watched that one batch being counted back 5 times, not in a sequence, but throughout roughly 50 ballots, 5 were taken out of the no's and put into the yes. 5 errors occurred. I saw it with my own eyes within 38 minutes of the opening day of counting these ballots, because you're not using the rule of 2, or 3 would be preferable. That type of error now puts a shadow on that process. Now, what happened? Somebody probably put a yes in a no box because it was one person doing that. But I couldn't tell because I'm 20, 25 feet away. They should have been very close so we could view what was occurring, but we couldn't. But I could see that they took 5 ballots out of the one box and put over into the other. And I saw that just by observing for a very short time period. 5 errors. Those errors were either accidentally done, or it could have been nefarious, where they were taking 4 no's and putting it over into the yeses. Because I'm at a distance, I can't confirm that. So I couldn't tell whether it was just correcting an honest mistake or nefarious actions. That too shouldn't happen, because they should be within 3 feet so I could properly observe, but it wasn't. The whole process was wrong. And again, I observed the process in 2012, and I stood right there 3 feet away to watch. It was very easy. And we all came away from that in 2012 feeling very good about that process. In fact, the one gentleman from the one side that I was on, I really hated him prior, and afterwards we became good friends because we agreed 30,000 times. Very few times would I ever agree with anybody 30,000 times, but I did, because it's very easy to count ballots. It's very easy to see if it says Dick or Gary. It's very easy to say if it says yes or no. So this process was what I observed in a very short time period. I have lots of experience watching these things and running many races over many times and helping many others. So while I want to certify the results, ultimately it will be in a matter of court. It'll be in court whether this is really going to be ultimately certified or not. That's exactly what happened in Oakland with the decertification of that election. And I want to see the data. And so before I can certify something, I'm going to need to see all the data, and I'm hopeful that that happens. We had an opportunity here to restore trust with voters. The recount process was a very easy way to start that process by having the public right up next to you, verifying the process, doing it right, showing that we got it right the first time. We failed at that. So it puts me in a very difficult position to certify today. Thank you, Chair.
Supervisor, John, thank you. Supervisor Rickert. Supervisor Rickert,
Yes, I was wondering, we have Ms. Franska, now I got it, Franska, rhyming with biscuit, Francisca.
Francisca, yes.
Anyway, if she could come up and explain to us the certification of the voting system, I think maybe that might be valuable.
Hi. Thank you. Joanna Francisca, Assistant County Clerk and Register of Voters for Shasta County. So just
Please stop from the floor.
So
Sorry.
just to confirm, Supervisor Jones, you stated that in 2007, Secretary Bowen decertified the voting machines. Is that correct?
39 counties.
In 39 counties, yes. And at that point in 2007, when that happened, Supervisor Bowen did a top-to-bottom review on every single voting system in California. That's a completely different type of machine than what we're looking at now and how we tabulate and scan ballots now. Technology has advanced since 2007, so the machines look a lot different. 2007 was also when we started using paper ballots in California for every single election. It was no longer a touch screen where you went and did the touch screen and your votes were cast and went to machine. There had to be a voter verified paper trail at that point. And so we can then use the voting system and compare the results on the voter verified paper ballot, right? The voter's going to fill out their ballot, they're going to mark it, they're going to make sure everything is correct, and then they're going to put it into the ballot box or in the past into a voting tabulator, and it would scan and tabulate the ballot right then and there. And so that was the opportunity for the voter to fix any mistakes that their ballot might have had. And so at this point, when we're using a paper ballot, we're using that machine to tabulate the votes in our central count right now, and then we're going to compare the results to the paper ballots where the voter actually filled it out and marked it themselves. Does that clarify the questions?
Supervisor Garman. Well, hold on one sec. Supervisor Rickert, did you have something else as well?
I just find it interesting that there's a lot of discussion today about their concerns about hand counting, which is, it kind of disputes that hand counting is more accurate, I guess is what I'm saying. Well, I'm just telling you that it just seems like that the argument in favor of hand counting, there was a lot of concern that there was missteps in the phone and hand counting system. So I'm just baffled as to which one is going to satisfy anybody.
Supervisor Garman.
Thank you, Chairman Cry. First of all, Joanna, since you're still up there, somebody asked a question, what was the difference between the hand count and the regular count? Was there a difference in ballots cast, or the numbers, the final numbers?
Yeah, so included in our statement of vote, there's a variance report. Within that variance report, it talks, or in the letter to the Secretary of State, it discusses the issues that we had and that we found within the hand counting, the 1% manual tally. So let me read from that letter if that's okay. There are 3 variances found between the manual count and central count. After review of the discrepancies, it was determined that all issues were caused by human error. The system tabulated as expected. During adjudication, which adjudication is the portion where our team of 2 look to ensure the voter's intent is correct. So during adjudication, a ballot was tallied as an overvote, where credit should have been given to the no vote for the recall. The voting system showed 98 cards in a batch, but the hand count showed 100. After review of the process, it revealed that when the batch was scanned, a ballot jammed would be tabulated. Staff did not follow proper procedure. The batch should have been discarded and rerun. To mitigate this issue, staff determined which 2 ballots had not been tabulated by the voting system and then tabulated them. The last was based on a voter failed to make a substantial mark in the target area and only marked a dashed line. The dash was not tabulated by the voting system, but was considered a valid vote during the hand count. Those are the 3 different discrepancies that we have. It did not have an impact on the results of the election, and the machine accurately counted the ballots.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Your team has done an excellent job during this election cycle. And I know this day and age, everybody wants the participation trophy, like our Little League kids, right? But with the elections, there's really only one winner, and the rest are losers. It's time we grow up and accept the results. Thank you for the job you've done, and I'll make a motion to approve the certification.
And I will second that.
Thank you.
We have a vote on the floor, or a motion on the floor by Supervisor Garmin, and then a second by Supervisor Rickert. I'll weigh in. So this process for me, what I've learned is a great deal about the state of California and about government in general, and picking your battles. I believe there needs to be overhaul in some processes within not Shasta County elections, but just broadly the process. There are only certain things that we can control as supervisors. And I think as we set forth the direction of continuously improving the atmosphere in terms of buildings, I know, Joanna, you've talked about which county was it that had the big glass, like the racquetball court type?
Monterey County has a really great hallway where you can see every single process from.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this particular, and this is where Supervisor Garmin, because we don't talk outside of sitting up here, so I would tell you that the last statement about accepting results and things of that nature, I think that bothers me because I won my recall against the media, lies, hundreds of other things, but I still have large concerns with the process itself. And I've said, yeah, I know. We don't need to clap. We don't need to boo. I mean, we understand that this is a conversation. But, I will move to certify this only because I know when we look at AB 969 and how the state moves things, but I can guarantee as we look at more data, and I've told the Elections Commission, I went to the last meeting and I said, hey, if you find me evidence of one dead person voting, I said, and so right now there's roughly 13 that are being looked at. I will tell you, if that is substantiated, like with proof and declarations and death certificates and looking at like the ballottracker.com kind of stuff and saying, hey, if there's a person in here that doesn't get fired up about that, you should be really ashamed of yourself if that's substantiated. So I will move to certify this and vote to do that, but the process is still very broken, and it still needs to have as many stones turned over as possible, because whether we certify this or not, this goes on to the state, and it's going to happen. So anyway, Supervisor Kellstrom, did you want to weigh in, or should I call? Go ahead.
I'm there with you also. In this particular race, some of them weren't close enough to really be digging into it and taking a second look at it. I am concerned with, some of the voter rolls. I think the 2020 election, there was so far 400 that have been sent to the sheriff for investigation.
I would just like to clarify, I can't fix that if voters have concerns unless they bring it to us. And we as a community to self-govern and to ensure our elections are secure, that's a big role that the community has to participate in. I don't know when people move.
Okay.
I don't have that rocket science. I don't have that glass ball.
And there was no level of accusation there whatsoever, not at all. So, but I do think that, our voter rolls are dirty. I got my ex-wife's ballot, 3-4 elections in a row. Could I have filled it out and dropped it in a drop box? I could have, so there is some concerns. Of course, I didn't, but there is some concerns. And if we, talk to somebody today that does have a record of somebody that died 15 years ago, and the ballot was sent and the vote was cast. So I want to continue to look into this, and I want to continue to dig into it. But I think this particular election, I'm probably going to vote to approve it also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, Stephanie, I think we'll just do a roll call vote, starting with Supervisor Rickert.
Could I'm so sorry. Just want to make sure what the motion is. It should follow the agenda where we're declaring the nominations and the measures.
Yeah, the motion is to declare the nominations.
Very good.
Supervisor Rickert?
Yes.
Supervisor Kellstrom?
Yes.
Supervisor Cry?
Yes.
Supervisor Jones?
No.
Supervisor Garmin?
Yes.
Passes 4-1. Moving on to.
Thank you, Joanna.